Hello, everybody. Welcome to SportsSkope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. I actually wanted to get started the show a little bit sooner than I did. It's 8:57 on this first day of February 2022. I remember, I want to say just last year, the Super Bowl was around February 2nd, around Groundhog Day. Hopefully, the groundhog tomorrow won't see his shadow. We'll get an early spring around most of the country. We've had a really bad winter, to say the least. People in the Northeast has now suffered another blizzard-like condition. A lot to talk about today. Tom Brady did make it official. He is going to retire. My thoughts on that. Andy Reid not getting enough of the blame here, if you ask me. A lot of people going at Patrick Mahomes on those on his play, sloppy play. I believe I put a lot of this on Andy Reid and the history behind that. We'll get into that. We'll get into some of the new coaching hires for the Raiders. Look like they're going to have Josh McDaniel, Brian DeBall with the Giants. Talk about all that. But first, there was a breaking story. Came out about almost a little bit before 4 p.m. Central Time. ESPN reported that former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores has filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL. He's talking about a lot of serious accusations, racial hiring, issues with the Rooney Rule and everything. But the main thing, I looked at this story and it talks about him. Stephen Ross, the owner. Well, first of all, it says Flores says the general back in 2019, the Denver general manager John Elway and others arrived to the interview an hour late and hungover because he was a Rooney Rule type of hiring. Yeah, Mad New Yorker. Carlos says that Stephen Ross supposedly back in 2019 offered him $100,000 per loss to lose out. There was reports that they wanted Joe Burrow. They tried to trade up to get Joe Burrow, and Flores did not want to. Flores did not want to lose like that, and did not want to tank. They end up getting the 5th pick and taking Tua. But after the regular season, there were reports that the team wanted to trade up to get Joe Burrow now in the Super Bowl, and the Dolphins not in the playoff hunt. So the racial stuff. Okay, let's rewind this thing. All right. He also talks about the New York Giants. Brian DeBall was hired. They hired the general manager from Buffalo Bills assistant and the offensive coordinator. The general manager, Mr. Sheehan, he hired Brian DeBall. Both coming from Buffalo, correct? Okay. Well, so Bill Belichick and his text messages. By the way, I'll tell you my thoughts about this in just a second. So Bill Belichick is apparently friends with Brian DeBall. He knows a lot of people. DeBall used to work under the Alabama Crimson Tide. There's probably a connection between Saban, Belichick, and the offensive coordinator. Supposedly, he sent a congratulations. Looks like you're their guy, Brian, Bill Belichick. And Brian Flores is like, wait, I haven't even interviewed yet. So basically, after DeBall was interviewed, the word got back to Belichick that they were going to hire Brian DeBall. Okay. Supposedly, Belichick accidentally texted Flores saying congratulations. He meant to send that to Brian DeBall. Now, Flores is coming out with this in this lawsuit and using those text messages in a racial discrimination lawsuit. Okay. So that's a bridge burn by Flores. I love Flores, good coach, but that's a bridge burn. All right. Then he says that, he said the same thing about Denver a couple of years ago because of the Rooney Rule. He goes in and interviews. John Elway's hungover. They're not taking the interview serious. They were late. Denver has come out and put out statements that totally denying that accusation. And quite frankly, the NFL is already saying that these accusations don't have merit. I'm surprised the NFL would do that. I thought they would say, we're going to look into this. Okay. So, and the reason, and he's talking about being fired and all this stuff. Well, Chris Greer, the Miami Dolphins general manager, was black. So it's going to be hard for him to maneuver around that. Supposedly, Flores wanted more player control. And he was going through coordinators like hotcakes. All right. That's Chris Greer, the general manager, who also black from Miami. That's his and Stephen Ross's case. All right. So I feel like those are burned bridges. And not 2003, the Rooney Rule is put into effect. So you have to interview a minority. So if I'm an owner and I fire Coach X, and I've already got in mind who I'm wanting to hire. An idiot with a plan is better than a genius without one. T. Boone Pickens said that. So if you fire a coach, you already got the guy in mind. The NFL has a rule. You have to interview a minority person, whatever. So the guys know that coming in. They've already got their person in mind. So they're interviewing you. You get the experience during the interview, what to work on. And then they get the Rooney Rule taken care of, been out for 18 years. So the whole racial element, from what I see and what I read, seems like nonsense. Okay? From what I see and what I read, I think that Brian Flores has burned bridges and he's bitter. Somebody gassed him up to do this. And the media is doing their little, of course, they love to jump on racial narratives. We already know this about the American media. That's no big deal. Because the NFL has a 2020, they have incentives for hiring coaches of color. It says teams move up 6 slots in the rounds, 3 for hiring minority head coach, or 10 spots in the 3rd round for hiring a person of color as a general manager. If this is the new rule the NFL has implemented and it got voted on. This was in 2020. If a team hires a minority coach and GM, it jumps 16 slots. Teams will get bonuses for keeping minorities in those positions. Those are incentives right there, guys. So those are your incentives. So basically, Brian Flores, he burned his Bill Belichick bridge. And he burned any future bridge with the Denver Broncos, in my opinion. Now, going back to tanking, if he can prove, and he also alleged some other stuff like talking to players under contract. I think he was hinting at going out Deshaun Watson and stuff like that. That's a violation too. That's tampering as well. But if he can prove that they're paying, that he was offered through like an email, a recording, a text message that Stephen Ross was paying him $100,000 to lose games. I mean, the NFL should throw the book at Stephen Ross. I've never been a Stephen Ross fan. I think he's more about the headline than he is about winning. The organization has not done well under him. He's big in putting celebrities in different minority shares of the organization. Never been a Stephen Ross fan. That's the owner. Okay. But if he can prove now, and also Hugh Jackson, there was a report, Hugh Jackson, former Cleveland Browns coach, said that the Browns have also paid him to tank. Specifically, if you can prove that, that could be a legal issue. I mean, you're talking about something that could potentially be like an FBI investigation. Because what if a lot of gamblers knew about that, and then they're betting on them on the money line, especially with gambling now, to lose every game because the owner's incentivizing the coach to bench certain players that are not hurt and play backups to the air quote, get those guys work in to see what we got. This is going to force the NFL to look into this and to possibly implement a lottery system. I'm not a big, be death penalty. Blatantly there is a class action suit, so he won't be the only one saying this. Yeah, and this is what saying that the GMs are wasting time just having interviews. Well, of course, if you're forced to just interview somebody because they're a minority, we should be past that in this country. We are past that in this country. I just disagree with a lot of those techniques there. That's already too much. Giving teams incentives to hire minorities and general managers over other people. I just don't think that is the case in the NFL. The highest paid players have been black. And somebody said, I think it was Kenny Steele said something about, well, they need more diversity in ownership. It's just who's the highest bidder. The Broncos are up for sale. The highest bidder, Mr. Khan, I think is. I don't think he is. I want to say he's from the Middle East or whatnot, descent of Arabic descent. But I have to go back and check that. That's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's that. A lot of that is just total garbage. And Flores burned a lot of bridges. He burned a lot of bridges today. There may be a settlement there, but the real story is the tanking. Tanking part is if you can prove it. We know teams do it, but if you can prove it that they were being paid to do that, that could be a major problem. That could be a death penalty type of thing because you're messing with the integrity of the league, and there's too much good going on to be let something like that happen. And I'm sure this is not the. I'm sure this is not the end of this. Far from equality anywhere. Okay. Well, I just agree to disagree. I'll say that. I think a lot of people like to throw stuff up there. Our media sensationalizes things. And if NFL, we should be the NFL, more people should follow, like Jason Whitlock says, more people should follow the example of the NFL instead of the NFL trying to follow examples of society. Because that's my opinion. And that's Whitlock, and he's a black guy. So moving right along here. All righty then. Flores, you burned bridges. Good luck to you. But I do hope the NFL finds out about that tanking. That's going to be a big deal moving right along here. All right. And okay. Switching gears here. Tom Brady has retired. And, I'll say this about the guy. Again, he's a model of consistency. He's one of those people. He gets up earlier. He works harder. And he's one of those people that day in and day out, he never loses his composure. He's a guy that got started in high school. He didn't play football before high school. And that's probably why he was a backup quarterback in Michigan. He just started playing football in his high school. And I'm surprised he even got a scholarship at Michigan. If you think about it, he just started playing in the 9th grade, and so he's a backup from Michigan in 3 years. And the guy has a great senior year, and he ends up getting drafted in the 6th round, and things getting pushed back. And, and then I read that Brady actually beat out, that he looked better than Bledsoe in camp, but they gave Bledsoe all this money, and they couldn't do anything with Brady. They had to wait till he injured. Of course, we know the story. It's kind of an old. So he loses his first 2 games, and then and then Brady comes in there and becomes Brady, the guy that everybody's seen in camp, and the rest becomes history. But he's one of those people, and like I was saying the other day on the Mac and Jack and Jim show, he is a guy that he never you can never he always keeps his composure no matter what. I mean, not just a pick 6 in a Super Bowl coming back 28-3. Like I said, John Madden says he's always a guy that kind of hangs around, and you can't say that about other greats. You can't say that about Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is getting roughed up in the offseason here. And or not in these wintertime outdoor games, playoff games against the Patriots, and you could see he's defeated by his body language. You see it on Jay Cutler's face. I've seen LeBron James fold under pressure. LeBron James against Miami, when he was with Miami in 2011, he had a breakdown. He broke down in the Dallas because he was a villain. People still booing him like crazy. He folded. People talk about him being one of the greats of all time. I've seen Manning defeated. And I wrote down, he reminds me of a guy who didn't get in the Hall of Fame. This is a different situation because of the steroid accusation and everything. But Roger Clemens will give up 4 runs in a first inning. And most pitchers that do that, I don't care. Tom Glavine, I've seen him. Most pitchers that do that, they're done. It's a bad game. You better get your bullpen ready because he's going to be done. You're going to be down 8-0 before you know it. No, this guy had the mental fortitude to gather his composure and go 7 shutout innings and the game be tied, and then your relievers come in the 8th inning. Same thing with Brady. You beat him down early. You sack him earlier, get some interceptions. You get down by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Guy comes back. Same thing in bad weather, snow, rain. People want to talk about Deflategate. His numbers got better after Deflategate. So that especially somebody who played the fantasy, the daily fantasy, even back in 2009, I was playing daily fantasy and salary cap fantasy. And I was teaching it to a friend of mine at work, and he's like, man, this Brady guy is week in and week out, the same guy, and everybody else is up and down. So, yeah. And he was so committed to win it, and this is something that separates him from the other greats in his era. Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, even Russell Wilson. The difference between Brady and those guys, he always took a pay cut. He always deferred money. Why? Because he wanted to win. Breeze didn't do that. Those guys did not take those big pay cuts. They wanted their guaranteed money. They wanted that 35 guaranteed. Even before he met Giselle, Brady's like, nah, I want to win, man. I want to keep Welker in here. I want to keep our left tackle. I want to keep this defense together. I want to win. And that's what you look at. Look at how good Aaron Rodgers is. He's a major cap hit for the Green Bay Packers. Peyton was always a major cap hit. Some could say Peyton was a better regular season quarterback than Brady. And you can make that argument. But in the postseason, when you need a big defensive play, when it's fourth quarter, you're down by 4, who are you going to give it to? And the guy is Brady is he's the same throughout. before, during, and after. Preseason, regular season, postseason. You know, and like I was telling you guys before, Bill Belichick, he played his starters in meaningless games in week 17. You know, and Brady never complained about that. You know, he never complained about that. Colin Cowherd's talking about where he felt awkward when Belichick gave him the game ball one time because he broke some kind of record. Because he didn't want a pats on the back. He don't want a handout. That kind of goes to the Brian Flores. No, nobody's going to give you anything. You know, if you look at his combine picture and you look at where he was after it now, compared to his combine picture, he looks like this skinny, lanky, non-athletic, his awful 40 time. Nobody owes him. He's what I'm saying. Nobody owes me anything. That was always his mentality. And that thick skin of his. And you got to appreciate that. And a lot of his ex-teammates have spoke out, you know, Antonio Brown, Julian Edelman, guys like that. And you would think Brown even being kind of irritated with the Bucs. They all spoke up for Brady, you know. He's a guy that he never looked as tough as he really was. But I can't tell you guys how many times that he's got surgery after the season. Nobody knew he was hurt. And I hated that because I figured that was, you know, against league rules. And I've been in a lot of rules there. But, you know, that's basically my take on Brady. You know, and like I said before, I hope that and I know he's got his businesses. He probably won't go on the TV. He probably won't go on a coaching. But at least I would love for him to do like a quarterback camp or something, you know, for kids and do a do a quarterback camp, do a mentor program to help develop the kind of work ethic. A lot of people say they work hard, but they don't work that hard. They're not that dedicated. They talk a big game, but they're not quite. And I'll say possibly Manning can rival him as far as work ethic, but Manning never deferred money. Never deferred money. And you hit Manning earlier in the game, and it's just not going to happen for him. But that's the difference between Brady and, you know, and everybody else. I mean, some say he's the greatest team player of all time. You can make that in modern day times, last 50 years. I know Bill Russell, 10 championships. Other than Bill Russell, yeah. You know, he's got more championships than any other organization in the NFL. Trying to see if I had some more notes on Brady. Interesting stuff, guys. Interesting stuff. I got so many notes on that Flores stuff. Teams move up. Brady. He was the top 2 in passing, rushing, and receiving yards amongst NFL players 40 years old and older. First in passing yards, second in rushing yards, second in receiving yards. The Athletic put out, to put Tom Brady's numbers in further perspective, if Patrick Mahomes avoids injuries, slumps, and roster reconstructions to maintain his career averages, he wouldn't eclipse Tom Brady's pair of celebrated passing records until 2036 at the age of 41. With 17 games, he might do it. He very well might do it, but that's a lot of years, you know, him running around and stuff. So, you know, interesting stuff there on the Brady front. Again, I hope he stays an ambassador to the game. Guys like him are good for the game. Never seemed to back down from anybody, for that matter. And he played nice on TV, but I'm sure behind the scenes, Brady didn't take any crap from anybody. You know, I'm sure he's had his fallouts with Belichick, and maybe that'll come out in a book later on. All those years, they never went out to dinner together. Never went out, and that's okay. Just win. You know, you don't have to be friends. And there was a lot of guys I work with. I couldn't stand them, but they were good at what they did. You know, they really were. Okay, speaking of taking chances, we got two teams in Super Bowls where people took chances. You know, uh, in my life, as a personal example, I've taken big chances in my life. I went to New York City at 20 years old with money I saved up a summer and a half after high school, and lived up there uh, in a 100 square foot studio apartment with a friend from high school in 2001 to 2002 November. That was taking a chance. Wanted to get into acting and all that stuff. Things didn't work out, but that big risk gave me the mental confidence and fortitude. Come back here to Nashville, go to Austin Peay, finish college 4.5 years when I had to take every intramural class possible because of my crappy schools growing up. But I took a chance. I grew from that chance. You know, you fast forward a few years, I took a chance on real estate house one time. I was into rehabbing homes and whatnot. Had some success early in this home flipping business, 2008, 2009, right around that crash, and lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, you know, and was in debt for years off of that loss. But you know what? I paid all that back. I cleaned myself up, and I've been doing SportsSkope since 2017. And I've had a few dollars donated, contributed from friends and family over the years. But now I'm very close. I do a show with the Super Bowl champion for 30 minutes every Sunday. Jim Jeffcoat with Mac and Jack. I'm very close to getting a big opportunity now because I took chances and failed, and now I've built up that stamina. You see what I'm saying? Withheld to stay in things longer. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, he said, we might not I got this great idea to start this company, online bookstore. This internet thing's going to take off. But we might not make any money for 7 years. If you guys hang in there, I think we'll make some money after 7 years. What took 9? From 94 to 2003, then Amazon became Amazon. They played the long game. Same thing. Mark Cuban, founder of the Dallas Mavericks, he started this broadcast online. This was in like the late 80s, early 90s. All this internet stuff where you can hear basketball games and sporting events on the line. It was a big deal then. He says, let's do this for 7 years. And if nothing works out, hopefully all of us can still be friends. But we're going to have to work. And he supposedly didn't take a day off. They didn't make any money. And he gets it going. He sells it, becomes a billionaire, buys the Dallas Mavericks. Rest is history. Now, look into, let's see what time we got on my clock here. And okay, I've got one more minute. I think I'm just going to, we'll talk this out. But I'm getting into a bigger point here. Hold on, folks. Let me change out my podcast. All right. So the Rams, the Bengals, you say, what does that have to do with these guys? Well, if I can get my notes here. First of all, the Bengals hire a Mr. Brown, Mike Brown, known as a cheapskate. Marvin Lewis is a pretty good coach. Couldn't get him over the hump. Get to the playoffs. Lose the first playoff game every time. Andy Dalton, quarterback. And he goes out and hires a quarterback coach from the LA Rams. and this is one of the cheapest owners in the league. I mean, what a chance, This guy hires this guy. Everybody's dogging him. I am too. They lose. They get the first round pick. They get that number 1 pick in 2019. Lose enough games to get that number 1 pick. And now they're in the Super Bowl. He saw something. He took a chance on this 36-year-old position coach. Position coach usually don't make it. They don't make it 1 year normally. Anybody ever heard of Jim Tomsula, the position coach who took over after, I want to say, Jim Harbaugh left the 49ers? He took a chance on the guy. And the guy's turned out to be a good coach. He's got a good staff. I like his defensive coordinator, Lou Arenado. He took a chance, You look at this Ram team. 1 year ago, yesterday, or the game 1 year ago, the day of the NFC Championship game, I got on here and I said, the Rams traded a first-round pick and a former quarterback they went to the Super Bowl with, and another pick for Matt Stafford. And it reminded me of the Boston Red Sox when they brought in Terry Francona in 2004. It was one goal: win the World Series, Francona, because the manager we had before got us to Game 7, and they blew it to the New York Yankees then in 2003. Same thing with Matt Stafford. Les Snead and Sean McVay, they said, we're gonna roll the dice here. We're gonna get Stafford. He's got a strong arm. He wants out of Detroit. Let's be aggressive here. And they're mortgaging away their future and another quarterback. I mean, what a chance, man. And they spent a second-round pick to get Von Miller in the middle of the season. But they pushed all their chips in. And the goal was win a Super Bowl. Now, they've gotten there, and they're favored by 4 points. But look at the chance that was taken. What if they didn't even make the playoffs this year? There's a chance that Les Snead and Sean McVay would either be fired or on the hot seat to be fired. But they took a chance. Aggressive wins. You got two teams. Got this owner taking this chance on this quarterback. He could have took a retread. He could have took a retread, coach. There's plenty of coaches out there. And now they're playing a home game in their stadium. Yeah. And Tampa played the home game in Tampa last year. But they also took a chance. They went on Brady. They paid him a lot more money than anybody would. They could put a good sales job there. They had the money to pay him. They were responsible enough. Jason Light, I think that's the general manager of the then Tampa Bay Bucks. They took a chance. They had enough of their quarterback there that later went to the Saints. He's slipping my mind. Former number 1 overall pick. But he threw too many 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. They had the money. They took a chance with Brady, 43-year-old quarterback. The guy was there was a pandemic, no training camp hardly, no meaning. I mean, he's sneaking around, and then they end up winning the Super Bowl. But the Rams took that chance, Cincinnati, and now we got a 38-year-old coach for Cincinnati, and Sean McVay's already been to one, so he's 36. He's pushing up on John Madden territory, and they're favored. I don't know who's going to win this game. I'll break it down next week because it's not until next Sunday. The Super Bowl's been pushed back. I like that too, by the way. But these guys took a chance. Risk. High risk in life. There was a study done. I told you guys this. Colin Cowardly talks about this study where people volunteered to change something out of their life, a certain group of people, and then another group, they say, okay, we're not going to change anything. And then we're going to ask you these questions after X amount of months or year or whatever. And about happiness. The people who changed something that they really didn't want to do, but they changed something, they were happier than the people who didn't change. People are afraid of risk and chance. And I think about this when I go out for my own jobs now, getting out of this job and taking a pay cut probably to go do sports talk radio. But I think I'll be happier doing that. That's why I tell my friends I think I'll be happier doing that. And if you're a Rams fan, you really got to be happy with the risk because they really want to win out there. Cincinnati, that was a huge risk. So now it's going to be a lot of young coaches. That's going to be the thing. A lot of these owners. Now, like I said, this guy's cheap. But these other owners with deeper pockets, they're going to go with that. Jameis Winston. Thank you, Pickles. Yeah, Winston, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. I mean, they knew what they had with him. Let's just go with the older guy. We got the money. Let's take a chance on him. Carlos talks about Mike Sherman. That you guys want to talk about equality and all that. That's the problem in the NFL. There's a lot of nepotism. I can't tell you how many coaches and coaches' sons and nephews that I talk about. That's probably the biggest problem in the NFL is nepotism. If you're not a former player, if you're not kin to somebody, Sean McVay's family is involved in football. That's probably the biggest issue. I don't think it's racist or anything like that. If anything, they go too far. They incentivize too far for racial stuff. Again, that's the actual rule. That's not me making that up. That is a rule in the NFL that if you hire a person of color, you get extra. You move up in the third round of the draft. If you hire a coach and a person of color from the management and a coach, you move up X amount of more spots in the draft. So that's like incentivizing race. So that's the inequality, Carlos. I can argue with that all day because I got the facts on my side. That's why I win a lot of these arguments. I can give you the facts, So I'm proud of the fact that we have the teams that we do. I think it's good for the league that Cincinnati's in the Super Bowl. I think Joe Burrow's going to be here to come for a while. Cincinnati, speaking of that, Cincinnati has, you guys ain't going to believe this. But looking forward past this year, they're going to be here for a while. The AFC North is going to be in trouble with Joe Burrow. If they keep this guy healthy, they've got $56 million in cap space. In case you're curious, Miami's got 64. The Chargers are going to be a force. They've got 58. Jacksonville's got 58. Of course, they've got nobody too. But Cincinnati and Jacksonville, Cincinnati and this LA Charger team, they got a lot of money. They got quarterbacks that they know are franchise players on rookie contracts, and they're only in year 3 next year. These guys are going to be in year 3. And then year 3 and year 4, you get rookie contract. Then year 5, you get the 5th-year option. So Cincinnati, better look out, man. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with for a while. Now, going back to the actual games. All right. So, Andy Reid, nobody talks about the Andy Reid's play calling. They don't talk about, and this has been an issue in the past, his time management issues. If you guys remember, we're 10, 15 years ago, 15, I think, more like it, the Eagles and the Patriots, the Eagles are doing like the world's longest drive. And Belichick is asking his assistants, he's like, what is McNabb doing? Is the scoreboard right? Are we still up big? He said, yeah, we're still up by a score. And they're taking their time, this time management after time management. And you look at Donovan McNabb, and he's throwing the ball in the ground. You know, they lack physicality. They lack red zone offense. You know, Clyde Edwards-Helaire averaged, he came back, he had, first game back was against Buffalo. He had 7 carries for 60 yards. 7 carries, 60 yards. And this game against Cincinnati, he runs for 6 carries for 36 yards. And Jarrett McKinnon runs like 10 carries for like 45, 50 yards. So, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 6 yards per carry. He is a power downhill runner. You know, you're in the 5-yard line. You're inside the 5. Not one basic off left tackle between the left guard and the left tackle call whatsoever. Not one call for that inside the 5-yard line. And that's the thing with Andy Reid. He'd rather throw it. You know, the play action on the 5 is supposed to be the element of surprise, but Cincinnati was so well coached, and Kansas City's become so predictable under Andy Reid that he feels like he has to call that rollout play, which is, I say, getting cute. You're overthinking it, whatever you want to call it, when he simply could have just left tackle, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, straight ahead touchdown. Straight ahead touchdown. Give him 6. And that's a thing with the NFL this whole past season, folks, is teams are too caught up in the analytics. There's this major youth movement going on in the NFL. There's a major offensive movement going on in the NFL where passing, and teams forget to run the basic draw. This the basic run play. And I think if they would have gave the ball to Edwards-Helaire more and let those safeties come in a little bit, let them relax a little bit, you got Mahomes, call the play action. You've got two of the faster players in NFL, Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, best tight end in the game. But when they know you're going to do that and you're backing up farther and farther and farther, and that's that part I would put on Mahomes, to back it up, then you're going to have a problem because the defensives have seen this. And you can ask the great Tom Brady this. Patrick Mahomes should talk to him. Brady's going to tell you, they're doing film on me hours and hours and hours, just like I'm doing film on them, the defensive coordinators, the defense. This Lou Arenado, this defensive coordinator, they are totally disciplined. It's not a fluke that they, for 2 games against Kansas City, Pickles, they've held Kansas City to 3 points at each second half of both games. Their defensive adjustments were that sharp. And this was on the road. It's because Reid is he's too pass happy. He's forgetting to run the ball. And, you know, if you guys go back to the Super Bowl they lost against Tampa, the few running plays they called in the second half were like 18-yard runs. Why don't you do it? Because he don't have the discipline to do it, Andy Reid. So I blame him more. For one thing, you got a healthy, I like McKinnon. The term for guys like McKinnon, it's a scat back. It's a slang term for a guy that more speed, more finesse, better in the open field, better on third down. But look what Cincinnati did. They stayed with the running game. because they respected that offense enough. They had to let their defense rest some. There was a lot of 2nd and 9, a lot of 3rd and 8. And when Burrow completed on 3rd and 8, they didn't get away from Joe Mixon. Did a little screen pass Shemazi P. Run. He ends up scoring. But again, between not running the ball and the defense of Cincinnati and Burrow playing through his turnover, I mean, they deserve to be there. They were the better team Sunday, And Kansas City, quite frankly, Buffalo should have beat them. Wouldn't for the squib kick. And check this out. They won the coin toss there at home, and they threw an interception. And that was just a backing up. Guy was perfectly covered. Mahomes throws the pick. Starting to get a lot of bad habits. San Francisco, LA, that's about how I thought it would be. I thought, both players, Garoppolo and Stafford, are going to turn the ball over. And whoever turns it over the most or at the worst time, late in the game, is going to lose. And what do you know? Garoppolo turns it over, very end of the game. The Rams go on, snap that 6-game losing streak. I know people talk about Garoppolo was hurt all year, yada, yada, yada. I'm telling you, the fact that his stock is up now, I still stand by that. I still say that they should definitely move on from him, trade him while you can, get a 2nd-round pick. You couldn't have got that a year ago. Get that 2nd-round pick. Maybe Carolina gives up a pick. Maybe Washington, somebody like that. Washington don't have a quarterback, the football team. Maybe deal him and take your chances with Trey Lance. They've already took a chance, Okay. Andy Reid. Oh, man, I got so much other stuff to get to. Okay, Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is going to be hired as a head coach of Derek Carr. The Raiders also hired Dave Ziegler, the Pats' director of player personnel, to be their general manager. So you got the 1-2 punch. Now, I did hear this today, that this general manager went to college, all the way back to college with with Josh McDaniels, the Patriots offensive coordinator. Now, McDaniels, Derek Carr said he wanted Bisaccia to be the head coach, the interim. Okay. Daniels, I've seen him getting some serious back and forth with Brady, or him hollering at Brady and Brady wearing him out. He's only a year older than Brady. On the sideline, McDaniels, now he was 32. I looked this up. He was he's 45 now. This is probably the normal time a coach should get hired, but normal times are done. This is the new world. He wanted Matt Castle when he first got hired with Denver. And Jay Cutler somehow caught wind of that, never forgave him, said he can't trust him. Long story short, he trades Jay Cutler to the Bears. He drafts Tim Tebow and fired after only 2 seasons, Josh McDaniels. I looked that up. Fired after 2 seasons, goes back, works quite a few years with the Patriots, wins some more rings, takes the job as the Colts head coach 2 years ago, backs out at the last minute. They hire Frank Reich. So now you're saying, didn't feel like the situation was right. Maybe is this guy flaky? Maybe he's not head coaching material. Well, I'll say this. if I'm Josh McDaniels, the first call, I try to learn from my mistakes. Definition of doing the same thing over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. You got to get a hold of Derek Carr. You got to smooth things over, be authentic, which he doesn't appear to be when I look at him. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he's older. He's 13 years older than he was when he took the Denver job. He's too young for that Denver job. And we'll see how that works out. They've got a better pass rush. They got a decent running game. Their offensive line is not what it should be, but it's better than I thought. They got to the playoffs last year. But I will say this. I'm here just to state the facts, okay? 8 former New England Patriots. 8 former New England Patriots, including Charlie Weiss assistants, have all been fired. And teams continue to hire Bill Belichick's assistants. Now, to be technically true with you, Nick Saban was an assistant, but not with New England. He was assistant at Cleveland. But the others, I mean, Charlie Weiss, Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia was also hired with Bob Quinn with Detroit, you know. He was also hired with him, and then that didn't work out. So this may not work out. But 8 assistants, and teams are still just chomping at the bit. Looking at it from the outside, I would rather for them to get Jim Harbaugh, which he's rumored to take the Minnesota job, which they still got Kirk Cousins. What are you going to do with Kirk Cousins? You know, he's a $30+ million cap hit. Your defense was ranked 30 to 31st last year. You know, if I'm management, which there's going to be new management there is new management. You know, if I'm Harbaugh, I'll say, what are we going to do? We're going to play this guy a year and get his stock up. We're going to trade him because he's not the guy. We know Kirk Cousins is not the guy. So I hope he don't take that job, but I got a feeling his assistant at Michigan, his defensive coordinator is working with his brother now. John Harbaugh is the defensive coordinator there. And it would put Michigan in a bad spot because we're so late in the game now with recruiting and everything and other coaching jobs. Michigan will be in a bad spot, but he's flirting with Minnesota Vikings. And I don't see the angle there other than chop up next year as a loss and go out and get another quarterback, see what Keelan Mond is, the rookie second-year player, and maybe trade. I would say part of my negotiation, if I'm Jim Harbaugh and his leverage, I would say, okay, do you think we can get something can we trade? Can we find a trade partner to take Kirk Cousins off our hands and his contract? That's what I would want to do if I am Jim Harbaugh. But as far as McDaniels, I'm going to wait and see, going back to him with the Raiders. I wouldn't have made this hire. He doesn't have a winning record as a head coach. He was fired as a coordinator also with St. Louis when they were the Rams then, but I guess that was different because I was under a new head coach. But we'll see if he's learned. He's got to make it right with his with Derek Carr, and he's got to make sure and sell Carr on here. If he don't, that opens up the door for the Raiders, maybe a Titans team to trade for Derek Carr, somebody like that. Washington football team, a lot of teams will line up to get Derek Carr. And if that happens and they don't get a quarterback, my guess is McDaniels will probably be back with Bill Belichick in the next few years. But the jury's out. I'm not going to be absolute and say they're going to be terrible. I just don't think that's going to be the case. All righty then. There was we're going to have the Senior Bowl this weekend. And people are making a big deal about Kenny Pickett supposedly going to be the top quarterback's hand size, Pickles. He supposedly has smaller hands. But you know something? hand size, 40 time, arm strength, even height. Shouldn't be a big deal. What does the film say? How fast can this quarterback make a decision? You know, look at guys like Drew Brees, undersized, 5'11", 6 foot, depending on what angle you see him. Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, even shorter than him. They've seemed to be fine. Lamar Jackson didn't even run the 40-yard dash. And I'm still not sold on him, but he's a pretty good football player. I'm going to give you that. He's won the MVP. He's got a job in this league. He didn't even run the 40 time. So Kenny Pickett's hand size, you know, can he hang on to the ball? Yeah, Pickle says Joe Montana. Joe Montana, I want to say, was like a 3rd round pick. He's 6 foot, 6 foot, maybe 6'1". And one of the most elusive eyes in the back of his hand, had a feel for the game type of guy. Ironically, he was the last time the Super Bowl was played against Cincinnati was against Montana. And he makes the comment, so cool, Joe Cool. Joe Burrow's more comparable now, the guy for Cincinnati, right? But he says, hey, look, there's John Candy in the crowd. And they're 90 yards short and not much time to go in that Cincinnati game. He makes the comment about John Candy. And everybody calms down. He hits John Taylor later, game-winning touchdown. And the rest is history, 4-0 in the Super Bowl. You know, again, Tom Brady, look at his combine. Couldn't run at all, not built at all. And he later came out. He told Robert Kraft, he said, I'm going to be the best player you've ever picked. And Kraft looked at him thinking, who's this 24-year-old kid? We picked you the 6th round, kid. Get over yourself. But you can't tell, man. That's the thing about quarterback. You can't measure that inner desire in a combine. Now, this year, the combine, they're saying, the NFL says, do not ask any provocative off-the-wall questions. 1 year, supposedly, a coach asked one of these recruits at the combine, was his mother a prostitute, to see what his reaction would be. And Mike Golick was like, well, I would say, what did you say? And then I would punch that person out. That's what Mike Golick said when he heard about it on Mike and Mike. This was years ago. It was about 8-10 years ago. And sometimes they get a little crazy, you know? Yeah, Daniel Jones is not good. All right. But Kenny Pickett, my guess is he may be the number 1 overall pick. I'm going to watch I'll keep up with the Senior Bowl, how that turns about. But I think this guy's going to be pretty good. I like to see him go to Pittsburgh, actually. You know, or the Giants for that matter. But it looks like you guys are going to be stuck with Brian DeBall. The Mayer family is going to, not Brian DeBall, Daniel Jones. DeBall is going to be coaching him. But that's all I have for today, guys. I am at 58 minutes. I'll be back Thursday. Look a little bit more into these hires. I'll just see if I can get a little bit more out of that Flores story. It doesn't look good, though. It looks like he's burned a lot of bridges, a lot of sour grapes there. Maybe have another Tom Brady story on Thursday. If you guys like the show, share the show. I know I'm saying this from my podcast. Look, I got a good audience tonight. From my podcast here, if you want to contribute to the show, go to the ZELLE app. Hey, Brian, good to hear from you, man. Contribute there. The word SportsSkope, that's at gmail.com here. Brian, good to see you, man. Got a good Super Bowl coming up. I think people talking about maybe Rams blowing them out. I say, no, I don't know. Cincinnati's pretty well coached. I think Cincinnati could give them a game, may win that game. But anyways, we'll go into it. Maybe Jim Harbaugh takes that Minnesota job. I don't know. We'll get into that. get into a little bit of other things, a few other things here on Thursday, around 9 p.m. Central Time, give or take a few minutes. Good to see you again, Brian, Carlos. Everybody's popping up on screen today. It's a good night here. And again, here's what I'll leave you guys with. Take chances in life. Have your head clear. Take big chances. Don't live in regrets. Don't live in regret. Two coaches and two organizations took chances, big chances. You know, Cincinnati hiring a 36-year-old position coach. The Rams trading away first-round picks and their quarterback they went to the Super Bowl with. Both took big chances, and now look at them. Now they're in the Super Bowl. They're in the Super Bowl. I would not have thought that. I would not have thought it would have worked out that way. Yeah, and we'll see about the Bears. My last take on the Bears, Brian, was I think that you have a lot to be happy about. I like that general manager from what I read, being that young. He must be really good, Poles. There, you got a defensive coach. I want to say they got the quarterback coach from Green Bay, young, but that's the movement now, youth movement, 37-year-old there. Go out and get an offensive line, get some pieces there, work on your running game, be patient with Fields. Fields has got all kinds of talent, you know. But anyways, have a good night, everybody. I'll see you Thursday here on SportsSkope.